by end of the day this Friday. That'd be great. Don't have to worry about that over the weekend then. Again, this is going to be streamed, or it's being streamed live on YouTube, so raise your hand, we'll get you in queue. And then, okay, we got one. There we go, there's two. Coach does not have an opening statement, so we're going to go right into questions. So we'll start with Chad. No transcript, sorry. So get those recorders going. It is being recorded on YouTube, and you could access it afterwards. So we'll start with questions. Chad.
Leading off. I'm way too slow to lead off, guys. Way too slow to lead
no
off.
Opening statement, huh? Okay.
You can throw it up here. Awesome. Yeah, let's go.
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right, Chad Leistiko, Des Moines Register. If all three of your quarterbacks were healthy, do you know which one you would select at this point, and then kind of give us an update on where guys are health-wise? You got
we have a slew. We have a slew. Yeah, it's. I mean, not everyone's never healthy at the same time, right? And I wish we already had, or we haven't had our meeting yet. When you talk about Reese, you talk about Addy coming back, you talk about Cade, who I think's getting close from what I've heard. I got to hear it, in the meeting today, but I know he lifted and everything went well, which is good. Met with Sully, he had imaging, So we're waiting to hear someone that's smart enough to know what all that means is going to tell us. So there's a whole lot of I don't knows right now, which is not great answers, but it's where we're at this point of the season. But it'll be interesting to see. And then there's, a guy like Jackson who played a little bit, and he needs a ton of reps. So it'll be interesting on the practice field tomorrow because we have no clue. I don't know who's going to be out there. I'm hoping by the end of the day I do, or at least tomorrow morning, so we can just continue because each guy, especially at the quarterback position, each guy's different, right? And they each need to work on different things. And so Jackson just needs reps. He's been a scout team guy running cards, and he's getting back to playing and running the offense we ran in the spring or in the fall when he got some of our reps of running what we do. And so I'm excited to give him a ton of reps in the bye week. This is a unique time to have a bye week for him. And the other two, I just got to get healthy, so they can be on the field and help us win.
You know what you would do?
Oh no, I would let them compete. It'd be a great week. It'd be like a real live. You guys have both done a lot of great things, and you affect our offense differently. Let's see who's playing well. It'd be a great battle. I wish that was the case, but rarely is that the case. Camp's like the one time that you can have a real live competition, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Is my guess that's not going to be the case this week.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Tim, with all due respect to the final two games that you have, the transfer portal opens in 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
How much of a priority is the transfer portal going to be? How do you kind of balance that time preparing for the bowl game and the transfer portal? And, is quarterback going to be a position that you potentially look at in the portal? And if so, how serious are you going to kind of dive into that?
Yeah, I think every position in this state of college football, right? I think every position every year you have to look, right? And that doesn't start. How many days did you say?
December 9th.
So whatever how many days that is. So it's coming. We're definitely going to look into it. We got to look at each position, and there's roster limits now, so there's a lot of moving parts. And I know Tyler and Coach have been working hard on that. I'm excited to have a meeting later this week to learn a little bit about all the work they've been doing for the past 6 weeks, just to kind of see where they think the holes are, and we'll have a great discussion and figure out. But I think you have to look at every position on both sides of the ball every year, right? It's a new way of college football. So it will not take away from the last 2 weeks. I mean, we got two more weeks to play to get better and continue to teach, and we are still in the beginning stages of installing the offense, and we called the play last week. That was the first time. I've had it in the game plan. We just finally called it, and Sully ripped it, and Gil caught it at the one, and it was fun to finally be able to run it in a game, and we run it in practice a ton of times. We've got to the point where I think we've pretty much repped everything in practice, but to be able to go out there and execute in a game was great to finally get that play off the ground. I didn't think Jackson would be the first one to throw it, but he was, and he ripped it, and it was a little bit behind. It was in front, and we would have walked in the end zone, but that's a play that I'd like to continue to grow. But yeah, so we're going to really focus on that the next 2 weeks, but we're definitely going to meet about this is the week to meet and talk and figure out what the plan is, and once it opens up, we're gonna have to be active in it, I think.
Tom Kickert, Hawkeye Report.
Hey, Tom.
Tim, Jackson shared a little bit about how you found him,
Yeah.
his story. Can you go into more detail on that? You were did you know about him when you went to the showcase thing? Or?
No. The story is simple. It was, the spring portal opened, and I got on it and walked. There's not a lot of people on it. I heard about how great it was, right? And that was December 1. So I was all excited for it to open up, and it opened up, and there weren't a lot of names on it. And so very, very limited amount of people that I was interested in that had actually had playing time, and I'll never forget, it was actually Coach Budmeyer, and I was kind of down in the dumps, and he's like, hey, you've developed quarterbacks your whole life. He's like, why don't you watch all those guys that are on it, their high school film, and, maybe we'll develop one. So I never thought about doing it that way because you want a guy with experience like Sully. And we got Sully. But, who knows if we're going to. Sully had a lot of options, right? So I literally watched every guy in the portal that had never played, because it has how many reps they've had in college. And I loved his film. If he was in high school, which he's not, but if he was in high school, I would have recruited him, off that high school film. And so went down there to see him throw and see it live, and just really got to know his coach and started the recruiting process. And lucky enough, we did get Brendan, which changed things a little bit with Jackson. But we kind of hit it off, and we were lucky enough to have him come, and he ended up playing, in his home state, UCLA. It was a very unique story.
John said to you, Isesh, with obviously part of Brendan's game is his mobility,
Yeah.
his running. Do you try to hold that back at all, or at least try to get him to slide when your quarterback depth is as precarious as it has been?
Yeah, you try to keep him on the edges. A lot of times on the edges you can protect yourself better. My biggest concern with any quarterback that's playing is that you go through your progressions. I do not want to make it backyard football, drop back and run around, And so we had him in designed runs maybe 3 times in the game. I think he had 9 carries or 6 times that I didn't want him running, taking unnecessary hits, and things like this can happen when you're not progressing, or you rely on your athletic ability instead of your being a quarterback first, and the running part is a great added bonus. It's icing on the cake. But first things first, right? And that's something we've always been working with. And he has the ability to progress. He has the ability to throw the ball. But guys that have the ability to run sometimes, leave the pocket too early, And it's something that definitely happened. It caused turnovers. You can't turn the ball over and win games, and that's what we did. And he learned from it. We had a great meeting yesterday. I met with him again last night. And so hopefully this is a great moment for him to see it, learn from it. And even on the one that he got, hurt on, the guy's what he should have been. The guy's open, and he's stressing out and feeling pressure that wasn't there, and he ended up getting out and didn't see the guy that hit him on the side, which is unfortunate. But when you watch yourself and you know what you're supposed to do and you don't do it, and then it ends up you take a hit, an unnecessary hit, it really hits home. So I'm excited about his growth from this point on, because I explained it to him those of us that have kids, it's like they want to touch the stove and you slap their hands, say, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And then what do? They reach again, and you're like, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And eventually they need to burn themselves. And when they do, you're like, then they're not going to touch the stove ever again, right? And so, I kind of told that analogy in my quarterback room, that, you have to live it. My freshman year, I played 4 years. We started off 0-9. I got hit too much. I held the ball I did everything wrong, And then I remember our 10th game, we won in triple overtime. And our 11th game, we won 72-7. And then we were on. We had to learn, and we did a lot of learning. And my body somehow made it through that year and played the next 3 years and had a lot of fun playing. But so it was a terrible thing that happened, turn the ball over like that, but you got to learn. And so I'm excited for his growth from this point forward.
Scott Dockerman with The Athletic.
Hey, Scott.
I was interested in seeing what are the kind of the tangible traits that you're looking for when you evaluate quarterbacks, and what are the intangibles that you feel are not only prerequisites but are mandatory in order to be successful in your system?
I think the biggest thing is that you got to be a natural thrower. That's where people, I think, miss the boat a lot. You look at Jackson is a natural thrower. The ball comes out with unbelievable tempo and spin rate, and And so I think that's the biggest thing is that's first and foremost. And people sometimes, they'll cut corners on that one to try to get a guy that can run or, Second thing is footwork. I'm a big believer in footwork. It's really hard on a high school film to figure out who can think. You don't know what they're being taught, But you'd be amazed when you watch a guy throw the ball on time on film. I know the timing of a hitch. I know the timing of a dig. I know the timing of a curl. So when I see him throw a curl, it's a 3 and a hitch. And if I see him throw a slant, is it a left-right ball? And so you can start slowly figuring out if he can make a decision, right? And so I put a premium on their high school, although I don't know what they're being taught. Like I put a premium on their ability to throw the ball on time. Because if they are, it tells me two things. One, they have pretty good feet. And two, they're making the decision to anticipate the throw, right? I remember recruiting, Kirk Cousins or Scott Tolles. They had the best feet I've ever seen. Ball's out on time every time. Kirk's still doing it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Second hitches to the back every single time. It's an impressive thing. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily processing information really fast, but I haven't met many people that have great feet and great timing that aren't processing information really fast. So I think that's where some quarterback recruiting gets – people miss, and then the icing on the cake is their mobility. Can they be a phase 2 quarterback? I explain it in 3 phases. Phase 1 meaning you throw the ball on time. Phase 2 meaning do you have the ability to work a pocket and buy time? Guys like Peyton Manning and Kirk Cousins. I mean, there's tons of them that can slide, step up, and buy themselves extra time in the pocket. Roethlisberger. You can go on and on about great phase 2 quarterbacks. And phase 3 is when it breaks down and you got to go. And you can ask Sully, you'll ask him, he'll be like, he was a phase 1, phase 3 last week. He was 1, and he kind of bypassed 2. And if he would have stayed in 2, he could have thrown a lot of balls. And he said it to me right after that. I mean, you watch the film and you can see it. So, so those are really important phases. And can they do all 3 things? And so, and we have drills because some of these things can be improved upon, right? If the more you do it, we have unbelievable amount of progression drills. I learned from Tom Clements up in Green Bay. He had a bunch of great progression drills, and the more you do it, the better you are. And then you add a moving pocket along with a progression drill. And we had a long way to go. The fun is in the work, but they're starting to see the things that we're doing in practice happen in the game. And sometimes it's really good because they do what they're supposed to do and rip it, and it works. And sometimes they don't, and then they look back and said, if I would have done what that drill, it would have worked. So we're learning, we're teaching. We're late in the season, but we're still building, which is the fun part with our group right now is that we're still seeing improvements, and we're changing the main piece a lot, which is interesting, but the improvement, is they're starting to see it and see the success that it can have and see some of the negatives that can happen if we don't do it. And that just increases buy-in, for the future and to something to build on in the next 2 weeks to hopefully continue to grow.
Hey, Tim. Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. About Jackson, you mentioned watching his high school film, and then, of course, we all saw him play this last weekend. Yeah. But I guess what has left you encouraged by what you've seen from him? And I guess how confident would you be in him being QB1 after 2 weeks, assuming, maybe Cade and Brennan aren't ready to go back?
Oh, how confident? I've stood over here and told you that there's no replacement for reps, right? And he hasn't gotten a lot. So would I be confident? No, I'd be encouraged because I know the human being and I know how he's worked at it. He did a pretty decent job progressing. Now, it was a panicked progression. His feet, there was panic. I always tell guys, if I want to know what's going on in your brain, all I got to do is look at your feet. And if your feet are panicked, you're panicked. Like, what's going on? If you're nice and calm, then I know how you're processing information. So he was definitely panicked, but he was progressing at a panicked pace, And he stepped with the wrong foot on the one he hit Gill on, but he made up for it with a quick hitch, So we're still trying to get him to the footwork. This whole offense works on this certain footwork. And he's working on it, and when he steps with the right foot and gets into rhythm, it helps him a lot because he has a natural ability. He can throw it. It is an impressive thing to watch. So, and the fun thing for him is footwork is something you can train, right? He just needs time. He got here 3 months ago, or he got here like a week before we started camp or something like that. So he has not had much time to work at this thing. So I'm encouraged about his biggest ailment is just reps, which we can give him, especially this week. 2 is going to be working on his feet, which is really one of the easier things to work on at the quarterback position. And it'll be fun to kind of see how far he can take it. I didn't want to throw him into that situation, but I thought he handled himself fairly well. And he's just mad he missed the last throw. I gave him his hinge. He throws that route, but his favorite route. So on that third down, I called that one, and he hesitated a little bit, and then he threw it inside, and he had it, and that's the first thing he said to me after the game. You took us down there and tied the game. That was impressive for a first-time walk-on quarterback to do, and Sully was encouraging him about how he played, and he was so hung up on that last ball on third and was it 9 or something like that, which is also encouraging, is because he has high expectations and he wants it. So I'm encouraged by that, and we just need time and drilling, we might not have time and drilling, but we're gonna put our best foot forward.
Mitch at KGA, and I just wondered if you could reflect on the last 2 years of your coaching career in life, and the decision that was made by a new AD in Kalamazoo to release you from your alma mater, to go into Green Bay, to come in here, which is another family alma mater, of just what have you learned about yourself as a coach, but as a human through all this?
Yeah, it's been wild, to be honest with you. People don't understand, like, when you get to be the head coach of your alma mater, you think, you never want to leave. You have opportunities to leave, and you don't plan on it, and then you don't have a choice. You have to leave, right? And so that was dark. Those were dark days. Having a chance to go with Matt in Green Bay was refreshing, to coach in the NFL, to kind of reintroduce myself to this system, which has always been my favorite system. I ran it for years early on in my career, and which was really unique, to get back. And the one thing that I've learned about coaching, at least in the MAC, or really, maybe, I don't know how many places are like this, but you do a lot. You wear a lot of hats, so you get further and further away from football, right? Which is what I love to do. Like sitting in a room with the quarterbacks, talking ball, trying to teach, is why we do what we do. And as a head coach, at least at that level, I know there's coaches in the NFL, they only want head coaches that are play callers. In college, they don't. They want you to go raise money, And so it's refreshing to get back to all about the ball. That's what you do in the NFL, and to be in a place at Green Bay with Matt and all the coaches, really. That was a enlightening year for me. Even though I was there till 1 a.m, I was the grunt guy. I'd get somebody coffee if they needed it. They didn't make me do it, but I would have. And so it was a lot of fun. And then coming here, being able to be a football coach and be around these guys and introduce something brand new that they've never heard of or seen, and watch the way they've worked at it. I'm glad they've had a little bit of success, not even close to what we need to be. But it's been a great journey, and learning a lot about what makes me happy and what makes me feel fulfilled and have better relationships. And so it's been a journey, but it's been fun.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. Just curious, your evaluation of the passing game at this point. I know there's been rotating pieces, and you hit the long one to Jacob, but it seems like there's just been kind of flashes of the long ball. Just what's your take on where the passing game is at this point?
I don't want to use the wrong word. Not up to par, right? I would like to use the word terrible, because we have a long way to go. It's the hardest thing to get going. There's been some games that we're averaging 7 yards a carry on the ground, and we have a lead, and as much as I want to throw it, it's not smart for the team for me to throw it. But we have to get to the point where we need to throw the ball to win. Like, it's going to happen, right? And we've shown flashes in practice, and it's getting better. And as soon as I start thinking we're good, then another quarterback comes in, and then obviously Jackson went in. And so we have a long way to go. So that's the fun part, is that we have tons to work on, right? And we've been running the ball efficiently, which has been helping our movements and our play passes a little bit as of late. But we have a long way to go. It's not something that you just overnight can figure out. And we're really young and wide out, and they're all getting better, which is kind of fun to see. And then Reese went down, and then Luke went down, and it was just like there hasn't been enough rhythm. But I'm excited. I'm encouraged about where we're going, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. I think we're doing a pretty efficient job running it, which is great. It's helping us get points on the board, which is our primary job. But we got to be able to do it always, any way you want to. And that's what we have to build and get to as we go.
Last question, Chad. Hey, Chad Leistico again. You just talked about a passing game that's not up to par, but you guys are actually on pace for potentially a school record in yards per carry. for a season.
Yeah.
How have you been able to execute that from your eyes? I mean, obviously, we know about the offensive line. We know about Caleb Johnson. But what has led to
I was going to lead with those two, to be honest with you.
Well,
yeah.
But something has led to all this. It's not just – so what do you see?
I do believe that and I have told Caleb this 100 times. I've told the offensive line this 100 times. I've told the tight ends that our wide receivers are blocking. I mean, it's an impressive thing to see, and it's hard. And I don't know if that was done, or I don't know the formations were in the past, but it's a huge part of this offense, and a huge part I know is the biggest headache for a lot of teams that are trying to run this system is they just can't. Look at the Rams. I mean, Cooper Kupp, Puka, they block now. They'll hit you, and our guys have done such an unbelievable job at being involved. We got 9 guys blocking. And it's shoot, our quarterback. We have 10 sometimes. The quarterback will get in front and block, right? So it's really just the all-in mentality of the group. Are we executing? No, not to the level we need to in some of the phases of the offense right now. We don't even, we've gotten away from some of the empty stuff. And we're trying to figure out this team as we go through and give us the best chance of winning every single game. But, man, the schemes have helped. Having Sully run around a little bit has definitely lightened the load a little bit. But, man, those receivers, I mean, when Caleb gets through the first line and all of a sudden we crack on a safety and then the corner's got to crack replace, and it's too late because my man 2 is gone, And so the explosiveness of because you have to be explosive on offense. Now, I'd love to be explosive in both. But we've been explosive running the ball, and that's which is really hard to do, but it's what we do right now. And we'll continue to expand, and you always work on your weaknesses. Just make sure your strengths are always going to be your strengths, and work on your weaknesses. And but those guys really, I think they've done an unbelievable job. We also, the shifts and motions have helped. We put them in positions where hopefully we can slow up linebacker play a little bit. I don't think we did a great job of that this weekend. I don't think I did a great job of that this weekend. To slow down their linebacker play a little bit. But the shifts and motions have helped. But those guys getting involved, I know we ran a lot of 13 last year, and we're running 12 and 11, but we're blocking it just like we're in 13. I mean, those guys are in there, and that's why on a quick play fake, Jacob Gill ran right by everybody and right down the middle of the field because he's willing to go in there and throw his body on the line on the run game. And I wish we had more of those, and they blocked hard enough to earn some more of those, and I need to call them at the right time, But those guys I really think have been a key to the explosiveness we've been able to have in the run game. Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
No. Yeah, whenever you're ready, Coach.
All right, thanks. Thank you guys for being here. There's a lot going on college football, a lot going on in college sports. Right now, a lot going on in the state. A legend just up the road, not too far from here. Mark Farley retired yesterday, or announced his retirement, I should say. He's a football coach, so I doubt he ever truly, really retires. But, kudos to him. He's had a great career. It's been fun to watch. I don't necessarily know him all that well personally, but have seen his work and seen what he's done not only for his program but also in the state of Iowa. So kudos to him. A couple things about us where we are special teams-wise. This year, just finished week 10 of the season. And, there's been some really good things and some things that not so good. Some inconsistencies, some things that we're continuing to work on. Again, some highs, some lows, some things that we need to continue to teach upon. But overall, happy with the guys. I think guys are working hard, trying hard. It isn't a lack of effort or anything like that. It's more just consistency, and those are things we're focused on improving on. That being said, any questions you guys have, happy to answer.
Start with John in the front row.
John Steppe, the Gazette.
Hi, John.
So, first of all, I think you go, was it 8 years without giving up a punt return touchdown, and now you've given up 2. Kind of, what do you attribute those to, and kind of what gives you optimism that can stay at 2 and not be any more than that?
Yeah, definitely. First off, history would suggest that, less than or not going more than 2. That's one thing. But it's definitely disappointing, discouraging at some points. And, I've got a lot of pride. I've been around this program a long time. I wasn't quite sure when it had happened or when the last time was, but I knew it had been a long time since I'd seen it. But I attribute it to a couple things. One, inconsistency with the punt location, and then two is inconsistency in the coverage. And so those are things that we need to improve upon and teach upon and continue to learn from. And I think the guys are doing that, and you're not letting our guard down. And I think we've done that. So again, those are things that we just got to continue to coach and continue to preach and work on. But definitely not fun at all.
Hey, Chad Leisticko, Des Moines
Hello,
Register.
Chad.
Yeah,
Great to see
nice
you.
to meet you. You've had, it seems like, anyway, for sure Ohio State was a situation where you had a fake punt called and Kirk called timeout. Can you explain kind of the process? Are you like in his ear? Does he see that? And also, can you speak to what happened the other day? Because you guys burned an early second half timeout on a punt that you really could have used later. I'm just curious what happened there.
Yeah, which are you talking about, both or?
Well, let's start with the UCLA game.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened there on that punt, and then rewind to the Ohio State game? Like, are you telling him, hey, we don't want to run it, or is that his call?
First off, I don't tell Coach Ferentz anything other than I make suggestions. I know where I'm at on the pecking order. So, it's ultimately his call, his decision. But we're talking about Saturday. It's really nothing more than just trying to make sure we see things that we see. I also think Coach was trying to talk to the official about something that happened on that play previous. So it had nothing to do with a fake or anything like that. You'd be trying to give away my trade secrets there, Chad, and I don't want to do that in front of a microphone. But, you go back to Ohio State, there's definitely certain situations where you like things better than others and like looks better than others and whatnot. But ultimately, it's Coach's decision. I make suggestions when, hey, we like this play or don't like this play, and we just keep playing and keep moving forward. But I do like the result that we called the timeout, and because the punt wasn't great, but the second, the redo on the punt was a lot better and fair catch and all that stuff. So it's a good ball by Reese, good snap by Luke, and good protection and coverage.
Scott Doctorman with The Athletic. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Scott. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. I wanted to ask a recruiting question, because you're a prolific recruiter, go all over the place. This year is completely different with the early signing period, no off-campus recruiting, which I'm sure it frees up your December like you've never had before. What kind of an adjustment is this for you, both at this very time, this very week, and then how you're going to approach December and evaluating future potential players for you?
It's funny you bring that up, because literally I just came out of a staff meeting about 15 minutes ago where that was brought up, and I didn't realize that you can't go out at all in December. I thought the window was just shorter. But what it's going to do, I think, will allow us to be more with our team here. Not as soon as the season ends, as soon as the last game, you take a day off and you go out on the road. You don't see your own team for 2 weeks. So I think that'll help us in that regard, be around our guys that are here currently. I think the transfer portal window's changing a little bit. So it allows us to be with our team and coach our guys, which is ultimately what we're trying to do, right, is make the best team possible and be here for the players that are here. Now, recruiting, you're always going out trying to find the next person to add to the class or add to the group. But I always feel like when you go out this time of year, you're leaving something back at home with the guys that you've bled with all year, that you've worked with all year. So I think it'll be nice to actually be with those guys and continue to help them through bowl prep and through bowl practice and things like that. I know I won't be taking a trip to Australia this December.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. LeVar, appreciate the time. Reese has had a up and down year. He's had some tremendous games, had some punts I'm sure he and you would like back. But, going back to Tory Taylor's freshman year, he kind of rode the same boat, both being from Australia. Is there anything that you learned while coaching Tory through his first year, whether it be about culture, whether it be about football, that you've kind of applied to teaching Reese, or are they two totally different situations? Because, again, one's 24 and one's a 19-year-old kid. And I guess how have you kind of helped him ride the highs and lows of just adjusting to America and the way you guys do things around here? Yeah,
I think the easy thing is to compare the two, right? Compare the two. But I think really the comparison stops where they're both from Australia. They both punt footballs. Both of them come here at different stages in their maturation, physical and emotional maturation, also with age, right? Both of them come here. The comparison that you could make is neither one of them really knows the sport of football, college football. But I do feel like, again, both guys are coming in different times and stages of their life. I do feel like each and every game, Reese gets better and understands the game of football. better and understand the significance of his role and what he does each and every game. And I think that's something to build upon. I think that's going to be a strength for him as he gets older. Like right now, that's not a strength for him. His first game he ever saw was the one he played in. Think about that, right? The first game he ever saw, he was in, and he was the punter, at Iowa. So that's a big deal. And but I do feel like each game he's gotten better. You referenced some highs, for Reese. What was the game? I think it was in Northwestern, where he went out and had 4 punts inside the 6. Like, man, I love Torrey Taylor. Torrey Taylor's fantastic. I don't remember seeing Torrey do that 4 times. And I think we all see what he's done since he was here and then now off of the Bears, and which he is punting more than he was told he was going to punt there, which is interesting to see. However, back on task, that I think the sky's the limit for Reese. I think he's a young guy figuring it out. I think each and every game he gets better. Each and every day he gets better. You just need to focus on consistency.
Hey, LeVar, Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. Mentioning consistency a few times with Reese and talking about the highs and the lows and stuff like that, like David just mentioned. I guess how do you curb that and make it a little bit more consistent, or is that just something that grows with maturity and reps and just kind of something you have to be patient with?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. You do have to have patience, right? You do have to have growth and maturity. You also have to have consistency in your fundamentals. And the sport of football, regardless of position, it really comes down to fundamentals. You've probably heard that 1,000 times here. It sounds cliche, but it's not. It's the truth. And you look at any great punter, any great specialist in the pro level right now, which we do often, right? We'll study guys, we'll watch them, we'll see, what do you see? Like, oh, he's got a great leg. Oh, this is a great kick. Well, how did that happen? You look at the consistency of the fundamentals. Like, okay, his footwork is correct. His hands are correct. Right, how he drops the ball is consistent over time. And if you do that enough times, you'll like the results. I think Reese is seeing that right now, and not only Reese, but all the guys in our room are seeing that right now, where the consistency of the fundamentals either pays off or there's detriment to it. And so that's what we're focused on right now.
Times, not to ask you a third straight question about Reese, but through 8 games, Torrey Taylor, as a freshman, earned all Big Ten first-team honors from coaches and media. Through 8 games, Reese had better stats than Torrey in that season. What's the growth trajectory for a guy like Reese who's already having that level of success, and how do you make sure a guy doesn't get high on their own supply?
Yeah, wow. is that no, did not expect that phrase here. But is that an actual stat? I didn't know that. Through 8 games, okay. Yeah, I don't know either. I think for Reese, he's a grinder. The kid's a workhorse. He's going to keep going. And I'd be shocked, and frankly, I'd be disappointed if he didn't continue to work hard. I think there's a lot more that he can improve on, a lot more he can work on. But I think we just continue to keep him humble and continue to keep him working. I think you go back to the last game at UCLA, he'd be the first to tell you that it wasn't his best game. And one of the goals we set out each game, or each week, is to play our best football, right? Knowing that last week doesn't matter. The next game, you don't even know if you're going to play in the next game. We're focused on right now. So how can we play our best football? And, I didn't coach my best. I think we've had players that say they didn't play their best at UCLA. So, the focus is the next opportunity. So can we play our best against Maryland? That's what the focus is going to be. And before that, tomorrow is our next practice, right? The next practice following UCLA. So I'm expecting guys that are hungry, guys that want to go out and try to be better. And that's what we're focused on, is improvement. And can we be better than we were yesterday? And then you stack enough of those on top of each other, then at the end of the year you like the result, or you don't. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report.
Tom, great to meet you.
Hey, good to see you too. Kickoff question for you. The NFL has changed how they handle kickoffs and how they do kickoffs, cover them. Would you like to see that adopted to the college game?
Frankly, I don't know enough about it. I went into the whole thing thinking that, that's just going to come to college next year. And now I watch NFL games, and I'm like, it looks just like it did before, except, people are kicking touchbacks. Whereas I was told they weren't going to be kicking touchbacks. They're going to be tackling guys inside the 20. Okay, your kicker's going to have to be an athlete. I'm not seeing any of that. So, what happens next year or the next 2 years, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it and spoken with enough guys to see whether they like it or not. I know I watched it at a couple OTAs that I went to, and thought I was curious about it, but I don't know how it'll translate to college. I think the college game right now is good. The kickoffs are good. I think that's one thing Drew Stevens has really improved on is his kickoff, his accuracy, his location, but then also the kick return game, I think, in college football is exciting. So, I mean, you guys get to see it whenever Caden touches the ball. I think everyone's on the edge of their seat. So, to me, it's exciting. I don't know why you would change that, as long as people are healthy and everyone's happy with what they see.
Tyler Attachment with the Des Moines Register.
Tyler, great to meet you.
Great to meet you, too. Curious about Drew. One, what was your perspective of the one that he drove that fan in the head on the kickoff? And also, you talked about his maturity earlier in the season, but just how have you seen that kind of carry over into the later stages of the season?
I just need to know, is Joe from Des Moines okay? He's from Des Moines, right? Joe from Des Moines? Man, he got blasted right in the face. And so all the stuff you see on social media and all those clips, like they tell the story. You need to see the coach's tape because it is clear. You can see him doing this, tracking the ball, and all of a sudden blast him right in the face, like right between his hands. But my initial reaction was, is he okay? Because I've seen guys get hit in the face before, but not at that velocity, not a civilian, if you will, who's not prepared for it. But I also feel like Drew has. Going back to Drew, I think he's definitely more mature. He's definitely has improved in all areas. And I think the sky's the limit for him. And the goal is to be, again, more consistent. You look at his track record, where he's at thus far this year. I think he's 80%, 81, something like that, percent on the year, with his misses coming from 51, 56, 58. So those are not chip shots by any stretch of the imagination. However, I think Drew is a potential weapon for us, and I think he quietly continues to work and improve. And I think he's helped by a really good battery with a good snap from Luke and good hold from Ty and great protection from the offensive line and tight end. So I think the sky's the limit for him, and just keep pushing and see when they need us.
Last question,
John Steffi, the Gazette again, in case you forgot.
John. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So Jaden Harrell got an extended look on defense last week. Obviously, you've seen a lot of him. I think he's third on the team in special team snaps. What's kind of really stood out to you from his time working with your units?
Yeah, I think Jaden's a young guy that continues to develop every play he gets and every game he gets to play in. And I think there's a lot of good football out there for him. It's never easy to go in a backup role and all of a sudden you're thrust into the starting Mike linebacker at Iowa. And, I played linebacker at Iowa, so I know kind of coached linebacker at Iowa, so I know how the defense works. And, that position's very critical to the defense. But then also you go from, hey, I'm playing 4 phases to now I'm playing 4 phases and I'm the starting backer. That's a lot on a guy. Happened to me as a pro. I got thrust in a couple games. It's not easy to do it all. So, kudos to him. And I think he'll learn, he'll continue to improve and continue to grow. And the sky's the limit for that kid.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
That's it? All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good to meet all you guys.
Yeah, it was fresh off an island.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, Washington. It's a couple weeks after.
It wasn't the first. It was like in the second quarter.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember they went to halftime, then they found the fan, and then they hit him. Oh yeah.
I know you're trying to make it look the best I
Okay, Coach, whenever you're ready.
Oh, guys, welcome. I don't know about you guys, but, the bye weeks are interesting. And the fact that, we get a chance to come up here and talk. And I know that this is our second one. I'm voting for just one bye week or no bye weeks, just for the sake of just keeping things going. But no, appreciate it. I just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up where we're at. Obviously, you're 6-4. Our guys are going out there, and we got some things to, I guess, look at and correct as we go back. This is a week to do that, just like the first week was, and just to reevaluate where we're at as a team. And obviously, we got some, 2 more games over here to play the regular season, and we're looking forward to that, and obviously getting into a bowl bid as possible. But, I'll leave it up to some questions if you guys like to ask.
Hey, Phil, Chad Lysico, Des Moines Register. Looking ahead to Maryland quick, how big an advantage is it for them to have a coach that's seen your defense for 12 years, probably knows where the weak spots are? Do you feel like could be a big advantage, and how do you kind of combat against that?
Well, I think if you look at it, obviously he knows us pretty well. Probably knows the signals and everything too. But I think, you go back and the system that we've been in for almost, since I've been here and since 1999, there's variations of things that we've done. Since I've taken over, and I think it's 2012, things have changed. Football has changed. Our players have changed. So really, when it comes down to it, I don't know who has the advantage or disadvantage in that case. Obviously, I think our guys it would be a heck of a challenge just to go out to the East Coast and play a very good football team as you see that as they competed against Oregon last week. So that's the challenge, is to make sure we can get our guys playing at a high level and getting ready for them guys. That's our next challenge.
Hey, Phil, Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. I just was curious about Jay Higgins' status, if you expect him to be back against Maryland, and then what do you think of Jaden Harrell and his relief of Jay when Jay was sidelined?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the injury stuff over there. I bumped into Jay, and he's always seems like he's ready to roll anyway, so I can't tell the difference, and I'm not really have any idea where he's at. I'm just making sure he has his time off and get some free time to himself. But I'm sure if he can go, he'll go. And that's a pleasure. Harold, now I think he went in there. You could sit there and say, you got a kid coming in mid-game. That's a little bit tough. You're not the guy. I thought he went in and did a pretty good job in there. There might have been one time he didn't set the front right away, but I'm sure that was nervous. The ball's in the middle field. Anybody could make that mistake, and I don't really think it was a mistake. I just think other guys have to adjust to it, and I thought he did a really good job of going out there, gotten in the right defenses and in the right spot, and I thought he played physical, and he did a good job for us to carry us through.
Scott Docterman with The Athletic. In 3 straight road games, you guys have allowed 200-plus rushing yards, and I know that's one of your principal tenets is to shut down the running game. Is there a reason, or is there some sort of underlying factor that's really allowed that to happen? And if so, in what ways are you guys trying to keep that from happening?
Yeah, obviously, the opponents that you're playing, they look at film too, and they're trying to attack you in different ways. But, whether you're saying it's because we're on the road that we're giving up that much, was the question? The way it turns out, I wouldn't say just because it's on the road. I think it has to do with guys playing, and whether it's, being in the right spot, making the plays that you have to make, or not making the plays. That's what it comes down to. We have 8 returning starter guys coming back this year. Everybody thinks that you're going to be just as good as you were last year, and you guys don't understand that. Every day you go out there, it's a challenge, okay? And you have to earn everything you get. And I think that we'll keep on striving and keep on pushing these guys to be the best they can be every day. And I think that's what they're looking forward to. And we're looking forward to the next 2 games. Obviously, Maryland's the next one. And we're focused on how can we improve where we're at now until the game time. That's really what we're focused on.
Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report. Phil, wanted to ask you about the corner position opposite Jamari. You've had various different starters there. How would you assess that position right now?
Yeah, I think there's, these guys are competing very hard for it, between Deshaun Lee, TJ Hall. Obviously Nestor's been out for at least a week or something, but I think there's some other guys we put in dime situation as a freshman. Watch someone in, and I think he did a decent job, you know what I mean? But I think there's, obviously everybody, it goes with everything. When you're sitting there, you're looking at it, that might be one position that, there's some opportunities that some guys can take care of.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. It seemed like the Michigan State game, the UCLA game, there was issues tackling. Just curious what your diagnosis of that was.
Well, football is a tough game, and when you go out there, it's all about angles and the angles that you take, and are you taking the proper angles to it. And you could see sometimes we were probably maybe a little bit anxious at the Michigan State game, overrunning plays, and them guys cutting it back. And then, it's going back to the basic fundamentals of football. It's obviously tackle the guy with the ball, but as how you go about it and how are you leveraging the ball. And that goes with all 11 guys, with the front guys, the outside, the backers, and the secondary. Are we all taking the same proper angles that we need to take to make sure the ball is being leveraged properly? And, we talk about it all the time, and we're coaching it all the time. And obviously our guys are trying to work on that. Every day they go out there, every time there's a play, it's a pursuit drill. And that's what we do. You got to run to the ball and making sure you're in proper position, and you got your feet up underneath you, you got your eyes where they need to be, and your body position where you need to be at.
John Seppi, Gazette. Hi, Phil. Was curious your thoughts, overall evaluating the pass rush now through 10 games.
Well, obviously, give an example of last week. We have more guys, chipping the tight ends, chipping the defensive ends now. The backs coming out of the backfield, chipping a little bit. So it's taking a little bit off of our pass rush a little bit. So I understand that, and I see why guys are doing it. And it might give them an extra 1 or 2 extra seconds to get the ball off. So, we'll keep on working on it. I think Kelvin does a great job, and Jay, and we'll get back to where we need to be. And not saying that it's been terrible, but it's, obviously when those guys play well up front, we do well overall.
Blake Hornstein, okay. Phil, thanks for your time. I wanted to ask you about Jay Higgins from an intangible perspective. Seems like a guy, when we talk to him, he'll take ownership. If there was a breakdown in the defense, he'll put it on himself. And I just wanted to ask you how that stuff kind of resonates in the locker room. Seems like he's a guy that people tend to follow, and while that can be a prerequisite for a middle linebacker, it seems like he's just one of those guys that people are drawn to and want to follow.
Yeah, he's contagious, of how he goes about his business. It's important to him as a football player, and just a lot of guys. I mean, he prepares. He wants to know what he has to be doing, and we expect a lot out of him. And that's his job, to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so I think he's always been, critical maybe of himself, sometimes too much. But he's been a great asset for us in the way he prepares and takes this game the way you're supposed to take the game.
Chad Lystico again. Kirk has often talked about when a fifth-year or sixth-year guy decides to come back for one more run, he's always nervous about it because he wants to make sure the buy-in is all there and everything like that. But I guess on the flip side, how have you seen all the young guys maybe that thought it was going to be their turn? How have you seen them kind of adapt to having to sit and wait a year? I mean, you can go down the line, Entringer, all these linebackers, all those guys kind of waiting. How has the dynamic been, I guess?
The dynamic's been great. I mean, I think the chemistry within the defense has been really good. I think the younger kids are seeing things and learning from the older guys, and maybe they didn't recognize when they were first going into the meeting or at the beginning of the season, and now they see the wear and tear, that some of the things that, wow, this is a little bit more complicated than just lining up and playing football. You got to know what you're doing. You got to have communication all the way across, and you got to be on top of your game. And some guys that we put in there, sometimes they find out real quick it's not as easy as you think. You know, you might think you're good enough to be out there, but how fast it is, the game has changed. And you got to be able to change direction. You got to be able to your thought process of how you're going to defend somebody, or recognize the situation, or recognize the formation, recognize the down and distance. What are they trying to do to you? And I think it's been a benefit for some of these young guys to actually see that go on. You know.
Scott Docterman again. Kind of the double-edged sword of having so much experience back is, your younger players don't get as much experience themselves. However, in the secondary this year, you have played a lot of guys, whether it's in a dime package or rotating in a Lutmer, entering the corners. Right now, how is your confidence, or has your confidence grown in them? And what do you see for them, not only now, but also through bowl prep and then into next year when they start making their own case on why they should be the starter?
Yeah, and I think, the good thing about it, you talk about Lutmer as a guy that's gone in there a couple different situations in the dime package, and Cohen's been going in and rotating a little bit, and you've seen the growth of the guys, and that's going to help us and benefit. And obviously, our focus right now is on Maryland and making sure that we get the right pieces together, and the guys are contributing that need to be in the game. And, if a situation comes up and some of these guys need to play, they need to step up and play. And I think they're ready for that. I think they've been on the field now. They understand what it takes to go out and prepare for a week and actually be on the field and be accountable for that. So I'm looking forward for their growth, and I think it's helpful for everybody in the back end. Sometimes, you play, I think we played 72 plays last week. We've been normally about 59, 60 plays. So we played a little bit of extra plays this year, last Friday. But I think that's going to help everybody in the long run of these guys taking reps and actually on live reps in the game. So it's going to benefit us in the future.
Attachment with the Des Moines Register. You mentioned that just because you guys bring back so many guys, it doesn't mean the defense is guaranteed to be the same as it was last season. And not to say like the defense has been bad or anything, but there statistically has been a little bit of a drop-off from last season. What are the reasons you feel like that has been the case?
I'll just go back to our expectations of what it is. As a defensive coordinator, you don't want them guys to gain a yard. So anytime they gain a yard, you're behind. You say, why'd they gain a yard? Or why'd they gain 10? I think the difference is our explosive plays right now have been a little bit, I think we're right on schedule where we were last year at the end of it. So we're 3 games there, and we're almost hit the explosives. But the bigger chunk plays have been too much, and for whatever reason, whether a guy's not in his gap or whether a guy has lost leverage, didn't see the ball, or whatever it is, that needs to be cleaned up. And I think that goes back to pursuing to the ball and making sure everybody's doing it every play, because you just don't know what play is going to make that difference. Our standards are very high, so when you say, hey, you drop down a little bit, well, yeah, for what we expect, you know what I mean? And guys know that. Guys understand that. And just because you go out and practice doesn't mean you're going to play well on Saturday. You got to have perfect practices. Try to have perfect practices to have a chance to play well on Saturday. And then, there's no guarantee just because you practice you're going to, do well on Saturday. Because them guys on the other side are trying to play too. They're on scholarship or NIL money or whatever they're on.
Take 2 more, Scott and then Jack.
I don't know how much Maryland film you've watched thus far. I guess it's tape or video now, not film. But what have you seen, if you have? Ty Felton, their wide receiver, is one of the best, probably unknown receivers or little-known receivers in the country. What does he present, and what about the quarterback, Billy Edwards, and how do they make things challenging for your defense next week?
Well, I haven't watched a ton of them yet. You know what I mean? We've been just trying to review some of the stuff that we've gone through, and some, I guess you want to say, self-scout stuff. But they're talented. I think, I don't know how many passes he's got. Was it 79 or 80 passes? I mean, he's got that. It's going to be challenging. Anytime in college football today, there's not one team out there that you can let your guard down on. And you can see it for whatever reason. It's more of a wide open offense, and people are doing a lot more things than they used to. And it's challenging for, everybody to be able to practice everything against everything. You can't do it. So it's the preparation that you have to do, and it's definitely going to be a challenge, away game again, as you brought up. But it's a game. You're still playing in the stadium. You're still playing on a 53 and a third wide, and then was it 120? Same field, right? There's only one ball, and we got to stop them from putting it in the end zone, and we got to put it in on the offense. Got to put it in the end zone. So, to me, I just think that, they're a talented team. You start seeing it, and one guy, and then you sit back over there in the secondary, you might not see something in the defensive line. Maybe a guy misses a gap or something like that, but usually in the back end, it's easy to see these balls going over, and it's a 50-50 chance that you're either going to make the play or not make the play. And the benefit is more towards the offense, the way the world is nowadays. Right?
With Casey, or last one. You now and Kirk a few weeks ago after the Michigan State game, it's been a lot of pointing inward, as in we need to tackle better. It's about our execution. When it comes to the other teams, is there, with UCLA, Michigan State, and Ohio State specifically, is there any concern that with all you've brought back in your scheme that, to use this cliche, other teams kind of have the book on the defense a little more? Or are you less concerned about that and more just we're going to continue doing what we're doing, but it's all about us and our execution and our tackling?
Well, I think it goes back to is what we do as coaches, as players. It's us too. How can we help our players out? And I think that's the first thing any time that you go into a game, and the first thing I think about, what can I do better to make these guys play better? And that's the challenge. And it doesn't matter. I guess I should. These things we do keep track of, wins and losses, right? But even if we go out there and win, you're still critiquing these kids that they could be better, or we could coach better, or we could have made a better call. So if you don't have that mentality, and it's called, to me, it's like you never arrive. If you kind of have that never arrive attitude, and you're always evaluating yourself, whether it's a coach or whether it's a player, I think you got to do it. It's a sickness, I think, a little bit, that you can't get rid of until you stop coaching. It's just, that's the way it is. Because it doesn't matter how good. I remember when Bob Sanders was here, I saw him on the sideline out there at UCLA game, and I just remember him, of all the plays he made. There's a whole bunch of other plays that he thought he could have made, and that's what makes the player he is or was when he was either here or whether he's in the NFL. Hey, you can make a better play. Even though I made the play, how can I make it better? And it's I call it a sickness,
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks. Yep.
Okay, enjoy your bye week. Thank you.